Hey, welcome to the Social 333 podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bentley. Today, my guest is Jimmy Estrada. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
I'm Jimmy Estrada. I live in Tampa. I used to live in Dallas. I'm originally from California, moved to Puerto Rico, Dallas, California, back and forth. But Tampa's home now. Been married for almost 21 years, 3 beautiful girls, and I'm in the payment space.
Nice. So you do merchant services?
Yes, sir. Been doing it now for about 13 years.
Okay. So what got you into that? Because I got some stories.
Yeah, so it started I was doing healthcare consulting. I was helping doctors set up their practice, hire staff, pick their EMR. They needed everything you could think of, credentialing, getting in and work with the insurance companies. And one thing they needed was a credit card terminal. Good friend of mine, Andrew Yu, he's a co-founder and founder of Business Payment Systems. I reached out to him and said, hey, I need some terminals. I need this, I need that. And before you knew it, I was doing it. And I thought I was just going to be in the healthcare space, but it just started branching out to different verticals. So that's kind of how I got into it, from healthcare consulting. It just kind of opened up that door for me.
I got a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
I tried to get into the space, and I just kind of started reading some of the reviews and stuff like that from different people, not from you, but from other folks.
Yeah.
And it's just, what I've seen is just not only a lot of turnover, but also a lot of people that get misserviced, if that makes sense. So somebody will come in and be like, oh yeah, credit card fees is $3 or 3% or something like that. And then a couple months later, it'll jump to 6 or 9 or something like that. And they sign some agreement and then they can't get out of it or stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about situations like that, or just the industry as a whole when it comes to that? Because I was going to get signed up. I had the paperwork in my inbox and I was like, okay, well, that'll be cool. I can go talk to businesses. I do a lot of networking. No problem talking to people. Just, go in and be like, okay, what are you paying? Okay. Just a loan refi. So, okay, cool. You're paying 5 and get a 3, or you're paying 9. Okay, cool. I can get it to 4. Right. So you can do a lot of that stuff with merchant services. But, I think there's also a thing that a lot of people don't talk about, which is a lot of people just ripping other people off, business owners.
And that's a lot more common than people want to admit. Way more common. When I got into the industry, one of the things that was very discouraging, and the reason I believe there's a lot of turnover, is because you go out there and the guy who was just there, who signed the person up, he was in the industry for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, or the gal was there for less than a year. And it's not necessarily them being bad. Maybe whoever's teaching them say, oh, you can make some good money and quick money. And the reality is, it's actual industry. It's an actual business. You got to service customers. You have to know your product. A lot of people are being put into these contracts, which we live in a generation now that I believe that signing these contracts, no offense to anybody out there, but signing these long-term contracts, I don't think it's needed. If I want a service, I could do month to month. I think that's really important, because if I'm not happy and you can't make it better, why do I need to be stuck with you? So imagine if I sign you up, I sign you up, Chris, for 3 years, and you give me a call. Why would I have to pick that phone call up? I'm like, he's with me 3 years, and if he wants to leave, he's got to have to pay up. So those are one of the things that I understand, that people who try to get into this industry, that's one thing. I think sometimes they're misguided. They're sold a dream, like many industries. Oh, you'll make tons of money. You could do this, you could do that. The reality is, you got to work. You got to gain trust. Sometimes it could take you years to close an account, but it's not just about closing the account. It's about servicing the account and knowing your product. So it's an industry that, as much as I was discouraged, because you're walking in to a relationship where someone's been hurt, someone's been beat, and now you have to go in there and say, hey, I'm actually the good guy. So if you're willing to put up with being patient, and you're willing to show them that there's an alternative, healthy relationship, that's for me, coming back from the healthcare consulting world, that's what really I think has helped me, and what molded me to be able to be in this space now for 13 years.
What got you into entrepreneurship? Because it's not for everybody.
Yeah, man. I wish I could give you this amazing story, but the reality is, since I was in school as a little kid, my mom had me at 15. Since a little kid, I didn't even know that was a word, entrepreneurship. I didn't even know something existed. I just knew in school. I'll give you a kind of funny story. I was never good at school. I just needed to get by. If I could get by with a 70, cool, let's just get by. I went to many different schools in public school, junior highs, moved around a lot. But in high school, I went to the same school for 4 years. And I remember saying, okay, so if I take this English class right now, I have to study hard all year, or I could goof off, I could play around, and then in summer, I could take the same class, and it takes less time, and I could pass it. So why would I spend all year taking this class and being serious when I could just skip class, goof around. I don't recommend this, but I was starting to think outside the box. And often, to be honest with you, I would skip class. I wouldn't go nowhere like to the mall. I would skip class to go into the piano room. I got really passionate about music, and I started teaching myself to play piano. But they would come in and say, you're not making good enough grades to be in these electives, and they would put me back into a classroom that my behavior, my personality was not able to thrive with. So I knew at a young age, I'm not going to go to college. I want to be a songwriter. And people would say, it wasn't for fame. People would tell me, you're not going to make a lot of money. There's a lot of people who want to be a songwriter. But in my mind was, even I'm making 30, 40, 50,000 a year doing something I love, let me do this. So I never really thought about it as entrepreneurship. I looked at it as something that I enjoy, something that I'm not a slave to. And I think that is what kind of led me to realizing when I got to the healthcare space, one of the doctors ended up losing his practice. And he said, Jimmy, I need to start my own practice. I said, I got you. And I didn't realize that everything I had learned in the healthcare space while I was living my dream and getting into the music industry, how to credential, in network, out of network, billing codes. I did not know that was information that transformed into money. So when the doctor, I helped him out at the end of the month, he gave me a check for like $2,000. I was like, what is this? He's like, for your consulting. That's where consulting, entrepreneurship kind of came into play. So I wish I could say I was reading these books and I was following these CEOs. I wasn't. I guess I realized 2 + 2 was 4 and school wasn't teaching me that.
So you got into the music industry or you kind of dabbled into it?
I did. When I graduated high school, I went back to Los Angeles. I went to Los Angeles Recording Shop. I like to say this because it was really cool. My first internship was at the studio of Jodeci with Casey and JoJo. It was my first internship there. It was a whole different world. I loved it. I loved writing songs. I liked producing, but I just wanted to observe. Then I started interning at Bungalow Records with Universal. And our school right across the street, we're nearby Dr. Dre's studio, Raphael Sadiq's studio, these guys. And I was really big on R&B, hip hop, Tank. And I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I love this. Came back to Dallas, started my own record label, was working with a good friend who ended up getting a record deal. I was just talking to one of the guys behind the scenes. And, it was my first song on the radio. It was exciting. I was still broke, but it was exciting to really see that there was more out there. And once again, I wasn't thinking entrepreneurship. I was thinking I love doing this and I'm able to feed my family. I was married at this time already for 3 years. So yeah, I got into the music industry. I'll be honest with you, I had a Jesus moment. I decided to leave that and start focusing on what am I going to do next, and hence healthcare and now payments.
Do you have any cool stories about the music industry?
Oh man, being in LA was awesome. Interning, seeing these artists come in and talk and realize that they were real human beings. It's like, wow, they were able to be so down to earth most of the time. I thought they were going to be stuck up. They were really down to earth. I think my favorite story that I could think of was the fact for me was writing all these songs, all these years, writing. And then finally being able to hear, hey, I wrote that second verse and it being on the radio. And you kind of feel like you got $1 million, right? And you didn't, but it felt like that. I remember there was a club here in Dallas. I won't say the name because I'm not sure if I could say it, but it was a very on and popping club. We would record these mixtapes. And what we do is at the end of the club, we wouldn't go to the club because I had to go to work the next day. I would go to sleep. I'd wake up at 1 o'clock. I would run or drive to this club in Dallas, me and some friends. And as people were leaving, we'd tell them, hey, we got a free mixtape, but you got to put it in number 3 or, number 4. It's CD days, right? And just bump it. And it was cool to see all these people leaving the club. Who doesn't want free music? And they were bumping to your song. So those were things that really excited me. I enjoyed it. There was no money in it, but it was nothing but love. And I loved it. I think it molded me for the patience, the resilience, those dark days that you sometimes have as an entrepreneur. I think music kind of gave me that platform.
That's awesome. Me and some friends were kind of talking about the music industry, and it's kind of, art is art, right? Yeah. So it kind of gets lumped together, and we're just kind of talking about how it's just like a numbers game for some people, because you'll listen to the radio, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful or nothing, but you'll listen to the radio and something, and you'll be like, wow, I can't believe like they picked like that song out of like all the songs that they could have picked. Off of somebody's album or something like that, and they think it's like a hit, or somebody starts bumping it, and then all of a sudden it becomes like a major, played by the every single half hour kind of deal. It's pretty wild, like the music industry.
Without getting into it, I just feel it's such a business, and I'm sure it has its place, but there's so much talented people out there. I think we could all agree some of the most talented people we know don't come out on the radio.
Yeah, I agree.
And some of the talented people who are on the radio got some songs that you're like, dude, that song literally, just changes things. I was just talking to the guy behind the scene about a mutual artist we both knew, who's still a good friend of mine. These guys have so much talent, so much gifts. And I often see, now that I'm looking at it from the entrepreneurship perspective, most of the time these people don't seem happy today because if they were given the opportunity to continue expressing that art that you're talking about, this art that they want to be able to express, but how do you monetize that without there being such a big system that moves it and doesn't let you breathe? So yeah, the music thing obviously was a great time in my life, but yeah, I think it has a lot of parallels with entrepreneurship, without a doubt.
If you were to give somebody that's like brand new, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners in the audience, somebody brand new, obviously you're an entrepreneur, when I think of it, because I kind of did the same thing what you did. So like I went to school and senior year, like I barely was there and I got really horrible grades. I usually just like copied off of people. And I would take like half a day or maybe even a full day and I'd just go work. Like I worked at a gas station. And back then you like pump gas for people and like wash their windows and stuff. And I was talking to somebody that's like a lot younger and they were like, you did what? Because they don't have that kind of stuff anymore, right? And I'm old school. But yeah, like, so I would do that. I'd be like, okay, well, like I could sit in this class and like do nothing and stare in the back of this person's head, basically, right? Or I can just go work and make money and then use that money. I was racing cars back before Fast and the Furious. I was street racing and stuff like that.
The original.
Right? Yeah, right. So back on V Street, right, in DC. But yeah, so like that's what I would do, and I was like, man, like this is great. Like I got money. Like I don't have to worry about school. Like I was living the life, and like I almost had to like go back another year just because I didn't go through any school and they graduated me because I kept getting in trouble. But I see a lot of like parallels with your story with mine, where like you just sort of like, okay, like this isn't gonna work out for me. Like I got to figure out another avenue. And it's really cool that you got into the music industry because that's a lot of people try to get into it, and like we were talking about, like they have the talent. It's just they never get that shot, that crack at it, and it's wild. I think a lot of the music producers, like they don't even really know what they're listening to, in my opinion. Like,
I mean, yeah, and just kind of go back on the music tip. I'll say this for me is, even before that, I think it all started with the way I was raised. I think my mother, I remember I was in 9th grade, 10th grade, and I had asked my mom, hey, can I have $86? It was exactly $86. She's like, for what? I said, I lost my book at school. I didn't even open up the book, but I lost it. It was like a textbook, right? And for me to go into the next year, I got to pay up. And she's like, well, pay up. I'm like, well, how am I going to pay up? I don't got money. She's like, find a job. I'm like, but I don't have a car. Anyway, long story short, I started going door to door, asking people, can I cut your grass so you could pay me whatever you want? And I think those things right there instilled, at that moment, I didn't know, right? But I remember at the end of that summer, not only did I have those $86, I had money to buy my own clothes. I had my own money to get my own fade. I no longer had to ask my mom permission for these things. And I think it creates in you this type of independency that you were just talking about. I mean, when I graduated high school, I remember I was half a credit short. And they told me, you're not going to be able to walk with your class. And I'm like, man, I was bummed. Me and my cousin were, the same grade. I wasn't able to walk with him. And I had to go to the school where the majority of the people who were in that school were ladies. And you would think that would be a good place for me. But these ladies, were pregnant and they were trying to get by. And here I am, a guy not pregnant, just a dummy, barely making it happen. I mean, I tried to get these girls' numbers. They did not want anything to do with no guys at this time. And like you, for me, it was cheating just to get by, But it created in me a low self-esteem because I never thought I had the ability to actually accomplish things because I figured my whole life has been barely getting by. So when I tell you the story about the healthcare or the music and you see, wait, he got a record deal. Wait, I got a check for consulting? That's a word? Like it started saying maybe there's something in me that I don't know about. And looking back, I now realize there's different methods. And teachers were great, I'm sure, but there's different methods to teach people. Like I was mentioning, I started playing piano. And I wanted to learn all the songs on the radio so I could, it was fun. And I remember that song from Tupac, I Ain't Mad at You. I started playing that on the piano. I remember the first time I was in 9th grade, 10th grade, I played it. The piano was out like in the main area. I went to school at James Bowie High School in Arlington. It's a pretty big school. And I remember playing dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. And everyone, it just went crazy. And it felt good to say, for the first time, I'm not talking too much. For the first time, I'm not barely getting by. It's for the first time people are saying, you've got talent, you got skills. And it did something to me. It started creating in me, where can I find that again, So, yeah.
I know the payment and space and the merchant space can be difficult, especially for entrepreneurs. It's a lot of no's. It's a lot of, like you're talking about, where it's like, okay, we'll get back to you. Like we got this contract ends this date or whatever. Um, for me, like I looked over the contract and stuff, and it was cool. Like I ended up going to a podcast, and I ended up meeting the guy. And he's a real nice guy, and I heard his story, and I was like, oh, like I'm down to go work. It's one of those like women in a woman in the red dress, like from the Matrix, right, where you like get distracted. Um, but we had a gentleman on the show before where he talked about like influencers, and like they'll run like a big promotion, and they'll get people paying $10,000, $20,000 or more, and then it'll be a situation where the payment processing company will stop it.
Yep.
Because it'll be like, okay, well, we don't know for real if all this money is going to hit, and if it doesn't hit, then we're going to be on the edge of it, right? Because when you get into payment processing, like the merchant takes on the risk. So if I go in and say, hey, look, like I want to buy whatever your services are, your product, and you're like, okay, great, and then for whatever reason, like I turn around and return it, or it never really happens, like the merchant ends up, on the end of it, and then of course you would end up on it as well. Talk a little bit about that kind of situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of times I've even seen in social media, people in my industry, they sell this dream to many people. The reality, guys, there's no shortcut. A lot of it has to do with education. So going back to, I knew somebody who was on Stripe, and Stripe does a great job, right? Competitors, but they do a great job. And for some reason, he stopped getting his deposit. Second day, third day, he's like, where's my money? He's emailing them, hearing nothing, but this is cash flow now. There's industries and there's certain verticals. When I say verticals, I'm talking about different merchants, industries where it could be considered high risk. So if he's selling something that they deem high risk, sometimes they could hold your money. The difference is that you're trying to do this email back and forth. So, making sure that you're with a merchant service company that you could actually call, you could text, that's real life. But going back to what you were saying is that there are things like education on chargeback. If right now, Chris, I went ahead and bought something for $5,000 and, oh yeah, I sold it, and you give me this product and I leave and I call my bank, it's like, oh, I never bought that. They'll immediately give me the money back until they do start investigation. And that's $5,000 that just leaves your pocket. Cash flow, that's money you needed. And what a lot of people don't know, just a little fun fact, if you key in a transaction or if you swipe a transaction, so not tap or not the EMV, but if you actually swipe or key it in, there's a big possibility that you as a merchant, you're not going to get that money back. You could have, I've seen this happen where somebody walked into a dealership, they bought $6,000 worth of parts. They scratched their EMV chip on purpose. They scratched it. And because they scratched it, you couldn't put the chip in. So what they did is they keyed it in, right? They should have tapped, but they didn't have tap. So they keyed it in. So this person leaves, calls and says, I was never there. They had cameras. They had the driver's license, but the bank said, because you took that payment in a non-compliant way, you can't dispute this. So that person knew what they were doing. They're left with $6,000 worth of parts. They could sell it for $1 and make a profit. And these are type of things that we come in and we educate our merchants. Even if they're not our clients, I love giving this information out because I would want someone to do it to me. So that's kind of where in this industry, it's not just sign something up, put a terminal, make tons of money. It's like the woman in the red dress. I wish I could tell you it was that easy, but there's no industry like that. Just like music. You see the guys up there with the billboards, but if you realize what it took to get there, are you willing to do that work to get that success, right? So we like to educate our merchants. There's a lot of things changing with AI, technology, compliance. The card brands have different rules. And that's what I think we bring value. And your merchant company, whoever you're with, should bring you that value and education to the table for sure.
Is there anything on the crypto horizon? Like, is anybody going to be, any of the merchants or anything going to be accepting crypto, or are they going to be doing like cards for crypto?
Yeah, so we're going to a conference here in Miami in a few months. That's one going to be the biggest topics. And you see in crypto.com or Coinbase, I'm not sure I can say these names or not, but these people, you see they have the Visa, MasterCard logo on there, and you get all these big cashbacks, but they're still using the card brand name. The only thing that, of course, has been everyone's kind of concerned about is today, a certain crypto could be X amount of dollars, and tomorrow it could change. It could go up, it could go down. It's so many different things. So there's a lot of things that is being looked at. You guys know also the U.S. Department of Treasury is involved in this. So I do believe, and I do see here in the next few years or less, I just feel like everything will be digitalized a lot more. And I don't think Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover are going anywhere. They're just going to know how to implement these things into their payment space. So what's coming, only the future could tell.
In terms of the merchant services, if somebody wanted to get signed up and just kind of start out like their first day, just canvassing, knocking on doors. I mean, I assume that's probably like the easiest way to do it, is just start showing up at people's, dry cleaners or a garage or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And just be like, hey, so and so, like, are you the owner? Great, awesome. Like, what are you guys paying? Or like, do you guys need a new merchant service? What do you kind of recommend for somebody like brand new?
Yeah, I'm a little less aggressive than most would want to be. I think the most important thing is when I go to someone's store or cafe, I like to see what they have. And by looking at what they have, I have an idea of, okay, this is a good solution. Is there anything I could add more value? Because if I go in just from the money tip, I think everybody gets turned off on that. I know I could save you money, but what's the point of saving you money if I'm going to switch it to something that's going to be more work for you, right? Or saving money, I tell people that's the easy part. I want to see it. Can I actually bring you value? Can I see, hey, by the way, FYI, you're not with me, but don't key that in, because when you key that in, this could happen. Really? Yeah. Just so you know, if you ever need any services, let us know. But just call your guy or gal. And usually I've done this before. We had a dealership we were working with, and they were switching back. They were just with us for a short period. They were switching back to their old processor. And I said, hey, before you go back with them, let me ask you why. And she's like, it's out of our hands. We just needed something real quick. And there was someone who referred you, but we're going back to this guy who's been servicing us for 15 years. And I said, okay, I'm not even going to try to change your mind, because anyone who's been in this industry that long deserves your business, because there's not a lot of us in this industry. Now, yeah, they're competitors, but these are guys I would love to sit down and talk with and laugh, because many guys in this industry have not been doing this for more than a year. So, I think if you have someone who's taking care of you, someone you could call, someone you could text, someone who's at least responding to you in 24 hours, you're in a great spot. But always, of course, you could always talk to them about pricing, but it shouldn't only be pricing. Make sure that you have everything compliant, security, those chargebacks in place, so you could be successful as a merchant.
Jimmy, if somebody wanted to find you online or wanted to ask you more questions, or maybe even wanted to get into merchant services, where would they find you?
On social media, you got LinkedIn, you got our Facebook. We got our Instagram. I'll start off with our website, www.jela, it's Jela payments.com. You could also find Jela Payments on Instagram, Jela Payments on LinkedIn. Reach out to me. And even if, I would love to have your business, of course, but even besides that, if you just want to compare some rates, no obligation. You could get that same proposal, take it back to your team and say, hey, this is what this guy is offering. Can you match this? And if they can, great. Continue with somebody who's servicing you. So we always say, we'll promise to save you money, even if it's not with us. And, even if we're a plan B, we want to know that we're there, and we love giving free information out, because ultimately we would want the same for our business.
Jimmy, I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.